The story took place in a small village in Hunan province, China. In the village, Zhao and Li were a young couple who grew up together and had a very good relationship, but their parents didn't approve of their relationship. The two young people didn't want to be separated, but no matter how hard they tried to persuade their families, the parents on both sides disagreed, and the two were forced to separate. Without much thought, their fingers interlocked, and the decision was made. There would be no more laughter, no more tears, only deep love from their hearts, and not even death would be able to separate them. Without a second of hesitation, they did what they decided. They stepped into the deep water while holding hands, allowing the river to drown them. Just as the two were about to sink into the water, an elderly man named Lu, who was hoeing nearby, noticed that something was wrong. Lu was terrified and dashed into the river to save them. The old man tried his best, but now the two of them were submerged. He fumbled in the river for a while before rescuing Xiao. Because he was too old, it took him a lot of effort to pull Xiao ashore. Now, when he looked back, he wanted to go into the water to save Li, but there was no sign of her in the river, as she had drifted with the current. Fortunately, Xiao choked on the water in his mouth and gradually awoke. But when he awoke, he saw that he was the only one saved. Li had vanished, and he ran into the river, desperately crying and wanted to be with Li. But the old man held him tight. Xiao cried bitterly as he looked at the rising river, saying clearly that they wanted to be together by choosing death, so why did they still have to be apart? At this point, Lu could only console Xiao with words before escorting him back home. After returning home, Xiao rushed to Li's house to inform the family of the news, and Li's parents and brother immediately ran to the river. Many people in the village came after hearing the news and gathered on the river bank.
"Li, my daughter!"
her mother cried. Li's father asked many people to assist him in getting into the river to retrieve the body, while her mother was kneeling on the ground and crying so hard that her heart was tearing. But after searching the river for a while, they couldn't find Li's body, and with no other way to find her, her father paid for a few small boats to travel further down the river. Folklore held that the drowned person would float on his own. If not, because the majority of them are entangled in the water ferns, people were still looking for Li's body down the water. Her mother was sitting on the bank beating her chest and crying to death. She said that she regretted and shouldn't have opposed this marriage. She forced her daughter into this path. But there was no medicine to heal regret in this world, and no matter how much she cried, Li could not be revived.
"It's my fault. Li, I hurt you."
From 2 o'clock in the afternoon until more than 7 o'clock in the evening, the body of Li wasn't found. Her family had paid to search for 3 days, but the body could not be found, which devastated Li's father and mother. Her mother couldn't handle the shock of her daughter's death and collapsed in bed, while her father scowled. That night, their family gathered to talk about how to resolve it. It was fine if nobody talked about her loss, but whenever Li was mentioned, the old woman's tears welled up in her eyes, beating her chest with regret. Her father was smoking a lot with a sad face all the time. The daughter was born from their guts, but now she was lying cold in the deep water, breaking their hearts. Li's brother stated that there was something wrong with the situation and suggested looking for a shaman to see if it could be resolved. The couple agreed with the idea. There was no other option. They could only try. 2 men arrived in Xiaoping village and looked for Mr. Shen's house. When a woman opened the door, Li's father said, "We came to meet Mr. Shen." The woman said nothing and turned around to let them into the yard. She brought the two of them into the room, opened the door, and informed people in the room that someone had come for business. At this point, they looked at the old blind man sitting in the room with a white beard. He greeted them. Li's father placed the items he had brought on the table. Li's father sat down, eager to find a body, but because he couldn't, he told Shen what had happened. When the old man Shen heard this, he sighed and said that Li was very resentful. When Li's father heard what Mr. Shen said, it was clear that Mr. Shen would have known something. He begged Mr. Shen to show him the way, and Mr. Shen replied that Li wanted to get married. Li's father was surprised to hear about the marriage and the afterlife. Shen gave the father detailed instructions on how to organize a wedding for the dead so that her body could be found. Finally, Mr. Shen emphasized that the ideal yin marriage partner would be someone who wished to die in love with his daughter. Li's father was concerned after leaving his house. The relationship between the two families was strained in the past, but now he had to find someone who was compatible with this yin and yang marriage. Although his heart was troubled, Li's father had to grit his teeth and endure knocking on Zhao's door in order for his daughter to rest in peace as soon as possible. When Zhao's father opened the door and saw Li's father and brother, he was taken aback because two families had long since lost contact. Li's father was not pleased when he saw Zhao's face. His daughter was no longer with him, but their son was fine. First, Li's father claimed that his family was to blame and that he should not have stopped the children from falling in love. But when Zhao's father learned that he wanted his son to marry the dead girl, he became enraged. With that, Zhao's father violently shut the door, not allowing Li's father to speak another word. Despite being mentally prepared when he arrived, Li's father was still upset by Zhao's father's attitude. At this point, his son persuaded him to go back to find another solution. He sighed and turned home with his son. At this point, they heard the door to Zhao's house open. Zhao was the one who opened the door, screamed with emotion, and declared his intention to marry Li. Because Zhao's parents were powerless to stop their son, the two families arranged a yin-yang marriage, a belated wedding, yin and yang separation. That night, both sides of the family prepared all of the offering and the heartbreaking black and white Li's portrait. Zhao was also well dressed. The two had often fantasized about getting married, but no one imagined that they would have to marry under such ironic circumstances. Li's father purchased a rooster in accordance with Mr. Shen's instructions. Zhao hugged the chicken to his lap and bowed his head in front of Li's portrait. The long-awaited marriage of two young people had finally begun. According to the blind old man Shen, Zhao bit his right hand and dripped blood on the rooster's head. Mr. Shen said that the rooster would replace Zhao to go to find Li. Li's parents then placed the rooster in a cage and transported it to the river where Li committed suicide. Li's mother hugged the cage, choking with tears. If they hadn't stopped the children, they wouldn't have done these stupid things. Li's mother threw the cage into the river, extremely regretful. After a while, the water began to bubble up as if something was about to rise. Then, Li's body came to the surface. Li's face was still fresh after days of being submerged in water, and the long-awaited wedding finally took place. Li was Zhao's wife after this marriage. Zhao insisted on burying Li in his family's ancestral grave, despite his parents' objections. Zhao would never give up on this love, and he wouldn't marry until getting old. He told his family that he only had one wife in this life, Li, and that if he died, they should bury him with Li.